Attention, please.
Welcome to the very first episode of Confessions of a Theme Park Employee. This podcast is a platform to give any current or former theme park employees, whether it be a big, well-known theme park such as Walt Disney World or a small, tiny one, a space to where you can tell your stories, tell your confessions, and this podcast is going to go into a deeper dive than what any other platform can really go into or touch. These stories can be completely anonymous, or they can be completely just transparent about who this person is and what they do. It doesn't matter. Either way, this is going to be a peek behind the curtain that nobody else can give or provide. I want to thank you, the listener, for tuning in to our very first episode. I'm so excited to be putting this together. It's been a long time coming. So thank you so much for listening and being a part of the show. And if you know of anyone who might be interested in listening to this podcast, please feel free to share it with them. If you are a theme park enthusiast, or maybe a Disney College Program participant, or you're a current or former cast member at a Disney theme park, or just interested in any of the behind-the-scenes world, then this is the podcast for you. This is your podcast to come and listen and hear all the stories that cannot be told anywhere else. Sometimes we might cover theme park news or updates from time to time. There is a lot going on, for example, at Epic Universe, up north from the Walt Disney theme park. A lot of news to cover there, a lot of news to also cover in the parks at Disney. But for our first episode, we're not going to really touch on any news or updates right now. For our first episode, I really want to set the tone and kind of give you a glimpse of what is to come from this podcast. And I'm actually going to give you a personal and intimate story of my very own, as I myself am a former Disney World cast member. I'm going to give you a glimpse into my day-to-day activities as a cast member, some crazy things that I have seen or been part of. And I also encourage you to do the same. I want to hear your stories. I'd love to have you on the show. You can always email me at themeparkconfessionpodcast@gmail.com to share your own stories or ask any questions you might have. This podcast is not in any way a one-way street. This is a conversation. This is a place for you, the listener. So, together, let's step into the confession booth, close the door, and let's get started on the very first episode. So I moved to Florida in 2019, and I knew that I have always wanted to work for Disney since I was very, very young. I believe I was about 8 years old when I knew, yes, that is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So eventually I did get to Florida, and I applied for a role. The role was in entertainment, specifically, technician. That is what I went to school for. That is what I have always done as a career. And I applied for it. I had an interview. The first one was on the phone. I think it was very, very short, just to kind of see if I was even qualified to go on to the next interview process. That next step was an in-person interview. I went to the casting center, and it was me and some guy sitting at a desk, and it was just the generic interview process of, asking, do I know what this is? Can I do this? Just all the regular stuff that you would expect. Nothing out of the ordinary in that part. A week or two later, after that in-person interview, I received a phone call from the casting center letting me know that I did get the job, and that I was going to start on this date. I was going to work at Hollywood Studios. I was going to be in a warehouse pulling equipment for the entertainment and all the shows. The person on the phone had a few questions for me, just some basic stuff. What is this? What is that? Just all the generic stuff that they would ask you. One of the questions was, are you 21 yet? And at the time, I think I was like 19 and a half or 20. I can't remember. But I was not 21 yet. Little did I know how critical that was, because to be an entertainment technician for Walt Disney World, you typically got to be 21 because you have to have your pyrotechnics license, which is all the fireworks and stuff like that. And the moment that I told the recruiter on the phone that I was not 21 yet, there was this weird, awkward pause. And I realized that something wasn't right. And he of course, took that pause And he said, well, unfortunately, I can no longer offer you this position. And I freaked out. I didn't really know what to do, what to say, because everything that I had done prior to, like since I was a kid, was getting to this point to get this job. And I begged the man. I asked him, I was like, listen, I have just moved down here. I need a job. Is there anything that I can do to still work for the company, just in the meantime until I turn 21? And he said, let me put you on hold for a few minutes and I'll get back to you. So he came back on the phone and he said, well, here are your three options. You can be a parking attendant, which is, working in the hot heat on the asphalt, directing cars and stuff like that. You can work in Epcot, driving the friendship boats, or you can work at Creature Comforts in Animal Kingdom. So, of course, out of those three options, I took Creature Comforts because I knew that it'd be air conditioned. I was then hired on as a specialty food and beverage employee at Disney's Animal Kingdom at Creature Comforts. Now, before I was able to actually go into my home location, all of the specialty food and beverage, which is really just Starbucks, employees have to go through a training process to learn all the Starbucks and Disney policies. And it was really crazy because in this building, they had a full-fledged Starbucks kitchen, and it had everything from registers to ovens to the hot and cold bars, everything. And it was a whole entire week of Starbucks training, which I feel like is even more than what an average Starbucks employee would get, which is pretty cool. I mean, we got to learn a whole bunch of things such as, the beans, like the coffee beans, and how each different location from where they come from has different flavors and profiles. We also learned how to truly taste coffee, which is like you slurp it, you swirl it in your mouth, and then you spit it out. We're able to really understand coffee from a whole different perspective, which is really, really cool. And it was kind of overwhelming at the same time because it was just so much information being thrown at us, probably like 10 of us in this class. And at Disney, there are Starbucks at each of the parks. You have Creature Comforts, Animal Kingdom. You have the Main Street Bakery at Magic Kingdom. At Hollywood Studios, you have the Charlie Carr Cafe. And at Epcot, now Epcot kind of had one for a bit, didn't for a little while, had a temporary location, and now they have I think it's Connections Cafe today. So all of these different cast members at these different Starbucks locations were in this one classroom together, all learning how to make drinks, how to, take orders, everything from the ground up. Our trainers were phenomenal. They were so nice and they were so sweet and they were so helpful. After the week course was over, we graduated from our little Starbucks Disney University, and I thought I'd be going right into Starbucks at Animal Kingdom, but I was wrong. I started my first week at Disney at Animal Kingdom's Harambe Market, which, if you don't know, is in Africa in the park, and it is an outdoor quick service food establishment, and is nothing to write home about. The theming is great, it's wonderful, but as a cast member, it's awful. It really is. I'm sorry, but these costumes are ugly. But, I can get through wearing an ugly costume. That's no problem. But the thing was, it was like this orange, black, and like gold kind of like skirt thing. And it was not it. It was not pretty. It was not cute whatsoever. And working in the hot Florida sauna made it 10 times worse. It had this ugly hat, like the straw hat. It was awful. I still really don't remember why they put me there for just a week. I think they just had some shortages on cast members for shifts. And the only shift and position that I was really ever given was kind of just like a busser. So I'd just be outside all day, 8 hours in the sun, taking trash out from the tables, cleaning the tables, wiping them down, sweeping things up, and stuff like that. It wasn't hard work, but it was just like, why am I here? What am I doing? And I remember just being so intimidated at that time because I didn't know anybody. I was the only person having to do this. And everyone was so much older than I was. And I was too afraid to ask for help or ask questions. And most of the time, I did my work, of course, but I would sometimes try to hide, I guess. Like I remember Sometimes I'd go into another location near Harambe Market, and it was like an ice cream kind of like drinks thing. I loved being there because it had air conditioning. We'd make Dole Whips and stuff like that. And that was great. And I loved being there. And I tried to hang out there as much as I could. But most of the time I was in the sun, just doing my job. So finally, the few days of working at Harambe Market was over. Thank goodness. And I finally got to go to my home location, Creature Comforts. Now, just for some added context here, I've heard the rumor that the Walt Disney World Starbucks locations are the most profitable, or they're, the highest grossing Starbucks locations in the world, which I don't know if that's true. So please feel free to fact check me on that and prove me wrong. I don't know, but that's what I've heard. But as a cast member, it definitely felt that way, because no matter what time of day it was, no matter what season it was, there was always a steady stream of guests pouring in through our front doors at Starbucks. Now, of course, there were seasons that we had a lot more guests, seasons where it was very slow. It just depended. But the way that all the Starbucks are designed is that there are essentially two Starbucks in one roof. So you have two Starbucks. So you can essentially take double the guests and keep the lines down. So for us at Animal Kingdom, we had two halves of our building at Starbucks, and one side was the island side and the other side was the Africa side, and both sides had the exact same layout. It was just mirroring each other. So you had everything on both sides, and sometimes just one side would be open. On busier days, both sides would be open. It just depended on the guest flow and how busy the parks were during that time. And we had all different types of people working at Creature Comforts. We had, older people. We had, people like myself that were younger. We had Disney College Program kids, all different kinds of people. And it was really cool to all work together in that setting. Typically, the older cast members, the ones with the higher seniority, were the openers, and that's the shifts that they would want, and that's the shifts that they would bid on, because they liked coming in. It depended on when the park would open, but sometimes it'd be there like 6 or 5 in the morning, I think, and they would leave pretty early too. I think it was like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, something like that. So they'd be in and out and still have a whole day, to themselves to do whatever they wanted to do outside of work. And then for the peasants of Creature Comforts, we got all the closing shifts, which really weren't that bad. I enjoyed it. But we'd come in around, I think it was like 2 or 3 o'clock, and we'd be there till about 9 or 10, just depending on the hours of the park. And if you're part of the Disney College Program, you will get the closing shifts. And of course, as a Starbucks, we would make drinks, we would take orders. For us, the way that the ordering system worked is we had, of course, a register to take payments and to ring things up, but we weren't like a normal Starbucks. Also, we were not considered Starbucks employees. We were only considered cast members. So we weren't partners with Starbucks. So we couldn't go to a Starbucks, outside the parks and get a discount or anything like that. We were strictly Disney cast members. But going back to the ordering system, everything that we did to take the orders was written on the cups. So whenever you ordered a drink, I would ask for your name, what you wanted. Everything would be written with a Sharpie on the side of the cup. That's the way that orders were literally taken. There was no computers, there's no nothing. It was all handwritten, which is pretty cool. There were dozens and dozens of different types of codes for the drinks that we learned at the Disney University. And if you look on the side of any of the drinks that you order at Starbucks, you will actually see like the boxes, like the drink, the custom box, there's like 5 different boxes, and each one of them would get some kind of code to make that drink. So someone at the hot or cold bar would get the cup that I wrote with a Sharpie on it. They would be able to read the handwriting and the code and know what drink that is to make. There were also different positions that we would rotate through. I think it's like every 30 minutes or 45 minutes to an hour. You, of course, had a register. There was hot bar that made anything, of course, hot, like with steamed milk, or anything with espresso made in it. That was at the hot bar. You had a cold bar for all the refreshers, frappuccinos, and teas. And you had, at the end of the bar, what was called Finish and Connect, which is the person who essentially gets all the finished drinks at the end of the line after they're done being made, and they wait for all of the drinks in that order. Like, let's say you had 3 drinks in your order. They're going to wait for all 3 of those drinks to be ready and done. They're going to look at the name and they're going to say, Brenda, I have your grande, hot, triple shot, vanilla, breve latte. Thank you and have a magical day. At this point, we were essentially the Chick-fil-A of Starbucks. There's also another position that I can't remember what the exact name of it was, but essentially you'd be the one to make sure that everything was stocked for your bar. So all the milks, all of the teas, all of the coffees, like the hot drip coffees were constantly being brewed freshly. The coffee, like if you go to one of the Starbucks at Disney, the drip coffee is constantly rotated. It's dumped out. It's brewed fresh every single time. They're also stocking all of the toppings, all the sauces, all of the inclusions that go into the refreshers, like the dried strawberries, the blackberries. They are on it, and it's a hard job. Let me rewind that. It's not a hard job physically, but it's a lot to keep up with. You have a timer on your apron to make sure that the coffees are being brewed, like I said, at the 30-minute mark, that your teas are being brewed for how long they need to, everything. It's a lot to keep up with. But if you're good at it and if you're on top of it, your cold bar, hot bar, your entire team will be so thankful for that and thankful for you for keeping their area, stocked and ready to go. Because if that position is slacking and someone runs out, I mean, it's a whole domino effect. I hate to be dramatic about it, but it's kind of true. One of the other positions was greeter, and of course, as the name implies, you greet, and all you do is just stand outside and you just say hi to guests, you welcome them in, you help answer any questions, and the questions that you get from guests are not just Starbucks related if you're outside. It can be anything from where's dinosaur, where's the safari, how do I do this? So you kind of have to be on your toes and able to answer any of the guests' questions correctly and accurately as best as you can. Speaking of guests, we never really had repeat guests or customers because we are a theme park, and typically these are people who've traveled all across the world, and we see them once and once only. But we actually did have a few repeats, specifically one. This guy, I think his name was like David or something like that. And he was a season pass holder, and he had his girlfriend or wife, I'm not sure. But the man had a accent, not like a British accent. I don't know where he was from, but he obviously lived in Florida now. And him and his wife or girlfriend would come in at least once a week. And he would always order the exact same thing. I think it was like some kind of hot coffee or hot tea or something like that. It was very, very strange and particular the way that he wanted it. And we all kind of knew that once he came in, like to get his things going, because he didn't like to wait. And he'd always go outside and sit with his girlfriend in silence. And it was so strange. And I remember one time, I think I gave him a cinnamon roll or something like that. I don't know. He's a very, very, very strange guy. And every time he came in, I got so excited because I knew his name, and it was just funny. That's all it really, really was. One thing cool that we could do with guests is we had these things called magical moments. And a few times throughout the day, we could give a cinnamon roll or a cookie. And our cinnamon rolls were shaped into Mickeys. So we'd warm them up in the oven. They'd be like hot and gooey. And same thing with the cookies. And we could give them to the guests to make a magical moment, make their day, make them feel special. And I was able to do that actually with Tim Tracker, who is a YouTuber who, documents like theme park and Disney vlogs and stuff like that. And I remember seeing Tim and his wife, and I think they had their kid in the stroller. I remember seeing them walk in. I was like, oh my God, it's Tim Tracker. Because in my eyes, that was like a celebrity. And I remember he was on the other side of the Starbucks. And I remember I asked my leader or my coordinator, I was like, can I please go give them like a cookie or whatever? And they said yes. And so I abandoned my position. I think I was on cold bar or something like that. And I ran all the way over, grabbed some cookies. I signed their names on it. And I was like, here you guys go. I'm such a big fan. I probably looked crazy at the time, but I hope that they appreciated it. So of course, with any kind of company or any kind of job, there are seasons where it's busier during this time and slower during the other. For us, I would say that the busiest time was around the holidays. All the parks were just packed. And for whatever reason, I mean, in Florida, it gets cool during the winter, sure, but it doesn't get cold. But at Starbucks during that time, everybody, and I'm telling you, everybody wants to order a hot chocolate. I don't know why. It's not that good. There are better hot chocolates you can get elsewhere. But we would have the line out the door, like literally out the door, going down the street, and everyone is wanting a hot beverage. More so, they want a hot chocolate. And before it would get busy, like during those busy months, our management would bring in extra steamers so we could steam the milk. And we literally would have about 50 to 100 cups at any moment, just zigzagging on our counters, full of hot chocolates. Everybody wanted freaking hot chocolates. It was insane. It was wild. And the crazy thing is that during any of these busy times, like not even just during the holiday season, but just any time that we would be busy, like even on a regular day, just like at in the mornings or, at lunch, it was kind of coming in waves. So let me explain the hierarchy of the cast members. So you have us, the cast members, bottom of the food chain. Above us, you had the coordinators who were between the management and us. Above the coordinators, you had the leaders, which were kind of like the managers. And that the thing is that you would think that our leaders would know how to make drinks, how to actually operate this place, but they don't. That was really crazy because during like the busiest times, whether it be hot chocolate or just a busy part of the day, they would always be standing in a corner just watching and supervising while we are swamped. I mean, swamped. Like we are like a machine. Our hands are moving like wildfire. Cups are being slammed. Machines are going. It is a madhouse. And they'd just be standing over off in the corner, just, looking like they're doing something. Meanwhile, we're just drowning. And the times that they would help, and bless their hearts, wherever they would help, specifically during the hot chocolate times, remember, they would just be in the way. They would not know what they are doing. They don't know how to make drinks. They don't know how to do anything. And it just baffles me because how can you have a leader who's been working at this location for years, way longer than I have, and still does not know how to make a drink? But sometimes they will come in out of the blue because they weren't always there. The leaders would always hide and they would go into their offices or they would just be gone and it would just be us and our coordinators. But sometimes the leaders and other leaders from different locations, like from non-Starbucks places, would come in through the back door and they would make their own drinks and then they would leave. And that was that. And maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, what's the big deal? Like, can't you make your own drinks and enjoy your own beverages? No, we could not. At normal Starbucks that are not Disney, you absolutely can make your own drinks. I'm sure there's some kind of limit for that. But for us, we could not make any drinks for ourselves. We couldn't try anything. We couldn't make anything like food or drinks. It didn't matter. The only way for us to be able to have a drink was only during a break, and it could be during your 15-minute break or during your hour lunch. You had to get out of costume to look like a normal guest. You had to go back on stage. You had to stand in the line, which sometimes would be a very, very long line. And you had to order and do everything just like a normal guest would. There was no privileges. There was no special ordering of any kind. You had to go through the whole entire process like any other guest would. Every so often, we would get seasonal drinks, and we'd have to be trained on how to make them. So we'd go in the back, and we'd learn how to make whatever beverage this was, and we'd make sure that we could all do it. And the crazy thing is that we couldn't even get an entire drink to ourselves. So there were probably about 5 to 10 of us backstage learning how to make this drink real quick. And we all had to split one drink amongst like 8 or 10 of us in these little shot glasses, like these little plastic tiny shorts. I think it's what they were called, like the short cups. And it was just so funny because I know that this company makes so much money, but God forbid we spend, just a few, like I think it's like $1 or less than that to make these drinks and to give it to our cast members. It was just crazy. And the other thing is that if you were on register and a guest asked you, oh, well, what does this drink taste like? You would just fib. You would just lie, or you would just try to make an assumption or a guesstimate on what this drink tasted like. Because in reality, you had no idea. You have not tasted that drink, but you would fake it till you make it. And overall, guests were pretty nice. You would always get kind of the crazy, absolute wackadoo crackheads that were super particular about their order. Or sometimes you have people come in and they would ask, what's keto friendly? Or you'd have guests who would want a hot coffee and they would specifically want exactly 3 ice cubes in their Americano, or just something so particular. And the crazy thing was too, is that they would be looking over the bar, just staring at you to make sure that you did it exactly the way that they wanted. And I get it. I totally understand that these guests are in the heat, the humidity, there's crowds, there's high wait times for all these rides and attractions, and they're spending thousands of dollars into not a vacation, because Disney is not a real vacation. It's a working vacation. You're walking, you're planning. You cannot just sit back and relax and just let things happen and enjoy it. So sometimes guests can be something, but overall, I had many, many great experiences. I'm very, very lucky to have met so many different kinds of people from all across the world. I really enjoyed getting to help these guests who had language barriers and try to help them order. That was always very, very fun and rewarding to help them with. I forgot to mention that if you are a DCP, working at the Starbucks is actually one of the highest paid positions for DCP. And the specialty food and beverage does, of course, get paid a little bit more than the regular food and beverage cast members do. So that's one thing to note. So now, I believe it is time to get into the secrets and confessions of my experience as a cast member at Creature Comforts. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was how, if you don't know, Disney actually makes their own biofuel to fuel their buses. Everything to make the biofuel is from the properties. They come and they pick it up, they get it, they dump it into essentially like a garbage truck. It gets whisked away into some kind of processing facility, and boom, magically it turns into fuel for the buses. So it's all clean, it's all great. So what kind of material can be used to make biofuel, you may ask? Well, it can be anything as innocent from coffee grounds from Starbucks. It can be our cupcakes that have expired, or anything food related like bread, sandwiches that have expired or just no longer good. We can put it into this dumpster, just a regular old dumpster backstage. And that's food waste. And that is what goes to make the biofuel. Well, we're going to broaden that a little bit more. And in the same trash can, wherever you dump these pretty little cupcakes, sometimes you'd also find dead mice, like these little baby mice, like no hair on them. And there'd be like dozens of them in there. And you'd also see like the food that they'd feed the animals with, also in the same trash can. And so you just go back there, open it up. You might find fish. Like I said, dead baby mice that they'd feed the other animals with. You'd find like lettuce and all different kinds of crazy stuff in this trash can. And it smelled so bad. It smelled so bad for being in the Florida heat, just like being baked all day long. And a part of the closing shift for Bus or Stalker was to roll that trash can down to be picked up overnight. And there'd also be empty ones, empty garbage cans, and I would go get the empty ones. I'd bring them back up the hill. I'd rinse them out and put them back so we'd have, empty ones to use throughout the day. There's actually a character dressing room that shares the same building as Creature Comforts. So Creature Comforts also has, of course, Starbucks. It has first aid, and it has restrooms for cast members, as well as a dressing room for character performers. Now, 99% of the time, the only character that would be utilizing that space would be Pocahontas, and sometimes the raccoon. I forget the raccoon's name. And they would come on and off stage, come through our doors, and be kind of crazy because you'd be backstage to use the restroom, and like as you're leaving the bathroom, Pocahontas would walk by, and most of the Pocahontases were not very nice, to be so honest with you. They just thought that they were hot shit, like they were the Kardashians, and they would not give you the time of day or even look at you. They acted like they were better than, and they were just so snooty, except for one of the Pocahontases. I don't know her name. Of course, wouldn't share it here, but I remember one of them was just so nice and so just I don't know, like at ground level with you. I remember one time, there's probably about 4 or 5 of us on break sitting backstage at the tables. And I remember she came off stage and she just sat down, and I don't know if she ate her lunch with us or what, but I remember she just talked to us, and she was just a regular human being and was just so kind. I'll never forget just that moment of just, wow, she is just so nice. Now for face characters, once they got off stage, they really were almost all the time like their normal selves. Like they wouldn't continue to play the role of that character. But for the costume characters, like the raccoon, for example, he would stay in character the entire time, and he would never hang out or anything. He would go right to his dressing room and just hide out in there. Another crazy thing that happened is I remember just how strict Disney was about their food and drink policies, about like what you could have, what you couldn't have. And like I said earlier, it was very rare for us to be able to actually taste and sample these drinks. And the only drinks that we could have, and it could only also be during your break, we could only have the hot drip coffee, and the only things that you could put in it was milk and sugar. You could put no syrups in it, no inclusions, no nothing. It was just coffee, milk, sugar. That's all you could have. And I remember this one older cast member who got fired because this cast member went into the walk-in refrigerator, and their position at the time was Buster Stalker during that moment. So they're going back to the fridge, I guess, to grab some things to put out front. And apparently this cast member was fired for eating one grape. Fired. Now, we didn't like her, to be so honest with you, but I don't think that she deserved getting fired for eating the grapes, because apparently she had low blood sugar, and I can understand that, but that's something else that happened that was kind of crazy. So 2020 hits, and as we all know what happened in 2020, whenever we first got news about the parks closing, we had all finished our shift for the day, and we were all standing on stage behind the bars after closing, and our coordinator or leader came out and was like, hey guys, we're gonna be closed just for a week, just 1 week only. You will be paid, and we're gonna come right back. So we're all thinking that we are getting a week vacation essentially, and that everything will be back to normal, as we all thought it would be. But unfortunately, that week passed and most of us didn't come back. Now, we did come back like for a day, I believe, to kind of close down our store and to put away the equipment and to throw away all of the perishable food items like the milks and everything like that, because we didn't really know when we would return. Now, a few months passed and the parks reopened, and all of the higher seniority cast members got to come back first before anyone else did. And I remember I think I was gone for months. I mean, like no paycheck, like just gone for months. And finally, I got a phone call from Disney saying that we were able to come back and start working again. Now, super excited, super excited. And whenever I came back, I just wasn't prepared for how different things were going to be. Of course, the whole entire world was different, don't get me wrong, but the parks were empty, and I had come into this role temporarily. Like I wasn't going to be there forever. Eventually I was going to get transferred out once I turned 21. And it was kind of disheartening, I guess is the word to use, to know that all of entertainment was cut or furloughed, and there was no shows, no parades, of course. All that was gone. The entire department of the company was all gone. And just the morale overall was just so low whenever I returned back to work, during the pandemic. And for us working at Starbucks, it was really challenging because all of our work is close contact, among other cast members. We're on hot bar, cold bar, and we're all 3 feet of space, working with one another. And to combat that, Disney decided, of course we're going to have masks, and we had these Disney issued masks and whatever. But on top of that, if you had to work in a space that was less than 6 feet from another cast member, you also had to wear this face shield, which had like foam that went on your forehead, and it was like a plastic kind of visor thing that went all the way in front of your face. And I remember we also had hats. That was part of our costume. And so it was like a hat. We had the masks. We had the face masks, or sorry, not face masks, but the clear plastic things over that. And it felt like you're walking in a spacesuit. And it was just so hard to hear. It was so hard to, read faces from guests or from other cast members. And so the morale was just in the toilet. And it was just so strange. And of course, the company as a whole was trying to figure out cost-saving measures. And so, like I said earlier, that people were furloughed. A lot of things never really returned back to the parks for guests. And it was just a very, very strange time. And, there was a moment that was kind of sort of the final straw for me. And now just keep in mind that this is a company and a place that I have wanted to work for since I was 8 years old. I knew that I wanted to work for the parks, that'd be my career. And I love this company. I loved it so much. Well, one time during the pandemic, I was a greeter outside, and I don't know when this was. I don't know even what happened. And to be honest, I don't even know if what happened was really true. But allegedly, I was outside greeting, and another cast member came up to me, and I did not socially distance myself 6 feet from that cast member after they had came up to me. And some manager, some leader caught that, had seen that. And so I'm pulled in to this office backstage nearby where my location was, and I had no idea what was going on. I just knew that, hey, can you come with us? We need to come over here. And I walk into this office, and it is the higher up of food and beverage, and it is one of my leaders. And it's also one of the union representatives. Like the food and beverage union was also in this little room with us. And they told me what I had done, allegedly, that I was less than 6 feet away from another cast member. And let me just tell you that during that time, my mental health was in the toilet. Oh my God. It was just bad. Everything was just so weird. It just felt so meta. And they had explained that I was less than 6 feet from this cast member. And in that moment, it was just so stressful, and the emotions got to me, and I bawled. I'll be so honest with you guys. I bawled, and I lost it. And I felt so I don't know, everything felt so ridiculous in that moment. Here I am getting pulled into an office for being less than 6 feet from somebody. And, I felt so worthless, and I felt like, the hard work that I did was meaningless, for everything up until this point. And I didn't feel very cared for. So here I am sitting in front of one of the biggest bosses, I guess, in food and beverage for my theme park. And I'm bawling. I'm bawling like a bitch. And because this is, again, a company that I want to work for. I love everything about this company. And after they told me what I had done wrong, I don't know what the consequences were going to be. I didn't know if I was going to be fired. I didn't know if I was going to get a point. I had no idea. So after they had told me what I had done wrong, the union representative pulls me aside away from them so they can't hear our conversation. And she says to me, she hands me a piece of paper, and essentially is a paper that will have me join the food and beverage union. And she says, I can help you, but I need you to sign this paper so you can be part of the union, so that I can represent you, so that you can keep your job. And I felt so helpless in that moment that of course I signed it, and I have no regret signing it. I think they might take a certain percentage of your paycheck, but in that moment, I needed help. No one else was going to help me. And I felt like I could trust her, and I did trust her. And I can't remember everything that happened, but it seemed like once I signed that piece of paper, management in that moment kind of was hands off, kind of as if I was untouchable. And, a few days passed after that, and it was very weird. And I decided to put my 2 weeks in. And I don't know, like I just felt like I didn't really care about the company anymore. I felt like a robot. I felt like a cog in the wheel, and that everything that I was doing was very pointless. And I knew that, I would never be transferred to the entertainment position that I originally was hired for, because again, there's no entertainment to be had. Everyone was fired and gone. I knew that it'd be years before any of that would return back to the parks. And so I put my 2 weeks in, and I think it was like the last or the second day before my 2 weeks was up. I was FaceTiming my partner backstage, and I was walking on the sidewalk backstage, coming back from my break. And this leader, that I don't know who she was, this leader is on a golf cart and pulls up next to me and is like, "You cannot be filming backstage. No, you cannot be filming backstage." And this is not a part of my character whatsoever. I'm not one for conflict. I do not like conflict. I do not like going against the grain whatsoever. But I think I just had a moment. Like I had been brought to this point where nothing felt like it mattered anymore. And I remember looking at this leader, and I was so mean, and I kind of regret it, and I kind of don't. But I turned to her and I said, "This is my last day here. Like, what are you going to do to me? Like I don't care." And I don't know what she said after that. She eventually went her other way. And I actually remember that I didn't even show up for my last day. Like, I think after that, I just felt so done. And yeah, so that was my time at Disney. Overall, I really enjoyed it, and I really learned a lot of great things, especially about how to take care of a customer or how to take care of a guest. That there are so many things that I learned that I still carry on to this day. And I do feel like it has propelled me in some ways to be a better employee, or to do things the right way, or, the Disney way, as they call it. So yeah, guys, that's my Disney story. Thank you so much for listening to that rambling. And now I'm going to turn the mic over to you, because I want to invite you to share your listener stories with us. You can reach out via email, and I'd be happy to have you on to the show, whether it be live, we can do this live in person, not in person, but, virtually, or I'm more than happy to read out your typed out experiences with theme parks, and like, I want to hear your confessions. Thank you again so much for listening and being part of this journey. And I really encourage you to share this podcast with anyone who might enjoy it. So once again, for the last time, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you stick around, and I will be back again soon with another confession from a theme park employee. Have a great day, guys. Bye.